I love being out there on the lake in the dark long before daylight, floating amid the silhouettes and reflections of the snowy mountain slopes, dark ridge peaks, innumerable shining stars and ringing chubs, the motor exhaust streaming low over the water in the vapors of the fog. It often seems as though I'm actually above the stars and clouds and peaks, upside down, a truly unique feeling, a magnificent, spectacular setting in which to catch these huge world's largest trout. Why? The drawing card? My insatiable curiosity to see just what might bite, how big, and the size of each one is a unique experience in itself. No matter how many I catch, trout as large as Chinook salmon, albacore tuna, and striped bass, tremendous trout, each one of the world's largest.
I'm excited like a young little kid every day of my life. Do you know why? Because I'm astounded, amazed every day I go fishing because the fish all bite on the lure I invented. How old are you?
I'm 7. I'm 10.
I invented my lure when I was 11 years old. And all the fish, all the different kinds of fish in the world bite on it. I fished in Russia several times. I fished in most of the European countries. I fished in all the Scandinavian countries. I fished in Mexico. I've caught most of the game fish species in both the Atlantic Ocean and the Pacific Ocean. I fished in Hawaii 7 times. I fished in every state in the United States, and I fished in every Canadian province in Alaska, all with my lure. This is the only lure I've used all my life. And all the fish everywhere bite on it. I fished with about 450 different boats on the Great Lakes and outfished all of them, all the guides and outfitters every single day with my lure. My children and I call the lure magic. My lure, the front and back, wiggle equally, like a teeter-totter. But also I have the lure wiggling like this, crazy. But in addition to that, while it's doing this, it also darts over to this side and over to this side and over to this side and over to this side, and the fish just can't stand up. And there's no other lure in the world like that. Then if you look at how the lure is made, you can see that it is totally different than every other lure that's ever been made in the world.
And Ray's lures were hard to find at the time. Sometimes he didn't hardly have any lures, and I'd only fish with that lure. I mean, that little 2-inch lure. And I only used white. That was the only color I ever used. But I found that the lodge up there had a bunch of them, and they were on sale because they couldn't sell them. They're not beautiful lures. Sometimes people buy lures on how shiny they look, not how they catch fish. It didn't take me long to learn that that's the only thing I used. I've never understood, again, why these lures aren't the top-selling lures in the whole country. They catch everything. I use nothing but these lures if I'm doing this type of fishing. So I guess I'm a testimonial. I'm a real guy. He changed my life by me moving up here on the knowledge he knows. So I think he's the world's greatest fisherman, and on top of that, I think he's a good friend.
Yeah. And how come no one here respects him?
Well,
That's kind of the question.
you know, I had a guy the other day tell me that he thought it was really unfair for him to come up here and spend 30 years learning where to fish. And but there's other people that come up here and find a good hole and tell others about it immediately. And people, you know, he felt like people needed to learn it themselves. And I think there's a lot of jealousy, a lot of when it comes to fish, who knows?
Yeah.
You know, fishing and hunting and stories.
But you figure Ray made a map to show everybody where to go. He sold tons of these maps.
And you know that I used to live next to Keith Roosevelt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. In fact, we're going to talk about Keith.
And I heard about him for a long time. And but I think he's not hated by everybody. There's a lot of people who really look up to Ray.
Yeah.
if you take a look at the people that dislike him, they either dislike him because he's out there catching too many fish, or they've had some kind of, just a run-in with him. I've had run-ins with people, but I'm sure there are people that dislike me for one reason or another. But hamburgers cost too much or whatever, but
Yeah.
Ray is, he's a normal guy, made mistakes, trying to do what's right.
Yeah.
A little bit obsessive when it comes to fishing.
Yeah. A little bit, with a lot of it, right? So.
Yeah.
Cool.
But I think he's always told me the truth.
What, have you heard any crazy stories in here running the cafe about Ray, or anything that just blew your hair back? Because you got nice hair. He was shot at one time.
Yeah.
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 He served in prison. Somebody told he talked to us about that prison stays.
Yeah.
But
living out on the lake.
yep, we went.
Ray's Cave. We were talking about that the other day. Wondered where that was.
We actually drove out there today. And
Did you really?
Seen that? It's kind of caved in from a rock slide, but we went out there in the windstorm and we actually took pictures of where the cave was, and he showed us where the strip of the lake where he caught all his record ground, which was years ago. But yeah, I had never been to the cave till today, so but I went out there today.
You'll have to show me where it is.
Yeah, I can show you where it is. It's about halfway between, if you took Cedar Marina and Sheep Creek, and if you just went right in the middle, if you went for both.
Oh, it's down south
It's
there.
in the Utah side, yep. And it's on the east side of the lake, and it's up in some cliffs, and it looks like what happened is, as the water got wet, probably his bear top burned off, when there was a fire there and stuff, that it caused some erosion that caved in.
Yeah.
So it's really not much of a cave there anymore.
Well,
But
I think Ray's an okay guy.
Is he the world's greatest fisherman?
Well, I haven't known a lot, but he certainly probably is.
yeah, yep.
Yeah.
Is your
I mean, he stops by here all the time
yeah,
and shows me the fish that he caught. Gives me some salmon and writes out the little
yep.
paperwork for giving the fish away, and so yeah, I think
He gave you a big fish last year, didn't he? Great big.
he gave me about a 35-pound.
Yeah. Yeah, because he had a little YouTube video that he showed us, and you were in it.
I know.
Like you made.
We went out front, and he said, "Now hold that fish up." By the time I was done, I was like this, trying to hold it up.
Yeah, yeah, I've been there. Yeah,
I
he
know.
catches a 40-pound fish. He's like, "Hold that up."
Yeah, just hold
and then
that
he's
up.
like, "Let me take a picture," and you're going, "I can't hold it. It's like curling a 100-pound weight."
I know.
So that's when you realize how heavy they are.
This is one of my books, and both printings sold out. Both printings of 25,000 copies each sold out, which makes it a bestseller. And if you go through the book, you see lots of quotes from National Magazine articles and lots of pictures. Me swimming in the winter in the lake at my cave. That's where we're going to go and film the cave. When I was sleeping in there one night, created a massive rock slide.
So whereabouts was the cave?
Yeah.
Drive right over there closer.
So I was very lucky that I wasn't killed. Not right here, but that short section right there.
That's where you caught the biggest ones, huh?
And that's where I caught all of those giant brown trout that made the lake famous. It's just that one little tiny stretch right there.
Come on, Bobby.
Never had any bite down that way farther. Never had any bite up that way farther. Never had any bite out very far from the shore. Never had any bite anywhere else on the lake. Just the minnows would hide in. And in the morning, all along there, looked like it was hailing. So many of the chub minnows coming up eating. And that's what attracted all the Browns, and that's where they lived, right there. This is my current copyrighted map that I did the artwork on. And over the years, we have sold, and you'll notice most of the pictures on here are of my children. Not of me, but of my children with giant fish. Over the years, we have sold 65,000 copies of this map, my copyrighted fishing map of Flaming Gorge. And that's a lot of maps of one lake. So that it's easier to read the sections of the map on the lake, I divided it up, enlarged it. And if you look at this fish right here, this is just one of hundreds. You guys see this big fish right here?
Mm-hmm.
That's just one of hundreds that my children have caught. My daughter Lisa, right here. See my daughter Lisa? She holds more official world and state records than any woman in the world in history. And my son Kirk, right here with Lisa, holds more official world and state records than any man in the world except me. So all of my family members have caught world records. And I drew the cartoons that are in the book myself.
An artist.
Yeah, I'm when I was in school, I drew great big wall murals all up and down the halls of the school. Anyway, you can see just a few of the quotes from national magazines. So the biggest reason why people are going to be interested about this is because my lure is so different, and it is so much better than most other lures in the world. But the other reason is because even though the world is full of good fishermen, and many of them might even be better fishermen than me, I'm the only one that all the national magazines, the Hall of Fame, and everyone for decades has called the world's best fisherman. And nobody can ever duplicate that. No bass fisherman or anybody else. So what this is, these are some of my children with one of the world records. This is a 2-hour movie that shows mostly not me catching the fish, but my son Kirk and Lisa catching the biggest, dozens of the biggest lake trout ever caught out of this lake themselves. Some of them longer than they were called. This is an article, national article that just came out. And it uses the word amazing. And its heading is Best Fisherman in the History of the World. Nobody else has ever had dozens and dozens and even hundreds of national and regional magazines and the major newspapers all across the country and the Hall of Fame call them the best fisherman in the history of the world. But all of them have called me the best fisherman in the history of the world. Then I've been in hundreds of national magazines and regional magazines. This is just one of them. You can see I'm on the cover. On many of them, they've had me on the entire cover. On Outdoor Life magazine, they had me on the entire cover sitting in my cave. And well-known writer Jim Zumbo, he has his own TV show also, he coined the term Hermit of Flaming Gorge. And so other national magazines have picked that term up over the years, calling me the Hermit of Flaming Gorge because I lived in a cave for 23 years up here. And the reason I lived in the cave was because it's so much warmer than a tent. And the heading on the cover of Sportsfield here says, "Read how this man catches more trout over 10 pounds from public water than any angler in history." And if you go through the National Magazine article, it's called How to Catch Super Trout. And they have, you know, lots of photos of big fish that I caught. But this, like I say, this is only one of hundreds of National Magazine articles I've been in. I caught all these big brown trout in one day. In that picture right there. But I've tried to tell all the national magazines all these years that it's the lure, dummy. It's not me, the fish bite on the lure, not on me. This is a mock-up showing the contours and shape of the lure right there. Then, a lot of these National Magazine articles I've been in, I'm the first fisherman in the world to ever be featured in them, like People Magazine. People Magazine usually only has movie stars and politicians in it. And if you turn to the article in it, again, they have me swimming in the ice in the winter at my cave. But they call me America's best fisherman, the world's best fisherman. And if you look in the magazine, the article after the article about my family is about the Kennedy family. So we've received publicity that no other fisherman has ever received. Then if you look in the current, this year's Utah Fishing Proclamation, in the back they show the Utah state record fish of the different species. And I won't bore you with all of them, but if you look at some of the notable ones, like, let's see here, tiger muskie. I've caught the Utah state record tiger muskie. My children and I have caught more than 800 tiger muskies at Pineview. That's close to where you live. Just casting the lure off the bank. Then, besides the tiger muskie, you turn a page or two over, I broke the Utah state record for yellow perch 3 days in a row, and it's never been beaten in all this time. Then, if you look again, the kokanee salmon, I hold both the world record and Utah state record kokanee salmon. As a matter of fact, if you look in the record books, I have it right here. Our family, my children and I, have caught 67 world record kokanees. And what a lot of people don't know about Fleming Gorge is Fleming Gorge is the world's best kokanee salmon lake. There's no lake anywhere in the world where so many big kokanee salmon are caught as in Fleming Gorge Reservoir. But also, in addition to that, this is the lake trout showing that I and my daughter Lisa caught and hold the Utah state record lake trout. We've caught the last 7 official Utah state record lake trout. And Fleming Gorge, in addition to being known as the world's best lake trout lake, is the United States, America's best, the best kokanee salmon lake. It's also known as the United States' best big lake trout lake. There's only 2 lakes in the world where bigger lake trout are caught, and they're both in northern Canada. At one time, my children and I held virtually every single Utah state record of every species, all caught on the lure. Many of them have been broken by other people now. Then here you have the official Hall of Fame world record book. And my family and I have caught more than 200 official world and state records. New national article that just came out calling me the best fisherman in the history of the world. I'll just mention a couple of things that they say in here. Our family holds the world record for catching the most world records, or having the most world records of any variety or kind for anything in the world. We also hold the most fly rod caught world records in the world. Says Lisa has the most world and state records both of any woman in the history of the world. Kirk has the most world records of any man other than me in the world. And it talks about me being the first person from most of the United States and all of that ever inducted, enshrined into the Fishing Hall of Fame. The second person was Philo T. Farnsworth, who invented the television. And I was the year before he was in the Hall of Fame. Just to give you an idea of the recognition that we've received over the years. Even though there are thousands of lures that have been invented, I'm recognized by the Hall of Fame with making the first lure that really wiggled a lot and still looked like a fish and had all the complete fins and tails.
Well, these are the old ones, Ray. I remember that. Where's that little white one?
Right there.
That little old real minnow. And here's what's cool about them. If you look at them from underneath, like I think I always thought lake trout saw them up in the shadow like that, it's got fins on it. It's got a tail. It's even got scales on it. And wiggles more than any lure I ever used. That's the one I used. I used the small one. I know you made the larger ones and some of the colors that you had, but show me those new ones, Ray. Tell me.
Yeah, so the new ones, we laser imaged off of a rainbow. So it's a rainbow shape. You can see how thin it is. And for the size of the lure, how giant of a hook. We call it an anchor-sized hook because it hooks almost every single fish that bites on it with the great big hook on it. And now I have the lure so that it doesn't just wiggle a real lot crazy, but it darts way to one side, then way to the other, and it does all this at the same time, and the fish just can't stand that.
This is one of the original lures that he had, and you'll notice that the original lure that Ray used to make is the same format, and it has gold eyes. So it has the gold eyes. So when we started, this was the first one Ray and I made. These are the prototypes we made, and these actual lures, Ray can tell you, but they probably caught 500 plus fish each of them. You can see the weight on this one actually started to fall out because it's a little softer plastic, and the bill on it would spin a little bit more than we wanted. So, and then when we were casting them, we found out that the cast would come up and catch a little bit. But the idea and the redesign of the real minnow lure was to take it so that we could cast it from the shore just as pretty as we could troll with it with a boat. So then we came up with the design we have now. It's a harder plastic, so the bill is much harder. It still has the bait cavity, so the bait cavity can come in here and you can fill that bait full of scent. And then it's ribbed, so it actually helps the scent itself. The weight's in the back, the wire's in the front, and it's actually kind of an engineered non-harmonious lure, meaning that there's no path or rhythm. Like Ray said, it's an erratic wiggle. And the other thing that it does that Ray will say is it wiggles left to right, and then about every 20 feet or so it jumps. And I think it's the water pressure buildup on the bill that makes it jump up just a little bit, which causes that to jump. But the other beauty is it casts, so you don't need a boat to fish with it. It casts from the shore, and Ray spent 3 months casting from the shore when he can't get on the ice.
Look at that thing. Yeah.
So,
yeah, quite a change from there. But wow, it's slick, streamlined, thin, blue eyes.
the other thing we've watched is the fish hit it. The fish always hit it from the head. The fish is attacking that. It's my example is if you put a buffet out and you got a great big old chicken breast sitting there and you got a plate full of chicken nuggets, everybody goes and eats the nuggets. McDonald's figured that out. So they're going to go and you're going to eat the little fish because there's less work, less bother So the big fish think the same thing. When they go after that lure, they want to just eat a bunch of little fish. A lot of things that are just simple and easy and eat it. They're not going to go after a big fish. There's too much work.
Because it's so thin nowadays, and you can see the hook is sticking out so far, their mouth just slides right down. It's almost impossible for a fish to grab it without getting hooked good. In fact, there's no lure I know of in the entire world that hooks the fish so well as this lure does.
Let me
With
see
the
those
giant
colors.
hook
What
on
kind of colors you got?
Then we've got 5 colors currently. We're working on other colors, but we've got the pink one that the kokanee hopefully go after. However, we've had a lot of good luck on kokanee, the white ones, haven't we, Ray?
Yeah.
And Ray's favorite for the lake trout is still the gold one. But we've got the green and then the clear. The clear is one that is fairly popular, and it's amazing how many people actually buy the clear and kind of design it with fingernail polish or other things to paint it up the way they want to paint it. But they're all the same wiggle, and they're all got those blue eyes. So
One of the things that amazed me was, geez, when I was first told how you catch lake trout, they'd have lures this long. They'd be great big flat fish, quick fish, and they'd be 1,000 yards of steel line out there. And the other thing is, we caught them, on 6-pound line, didn't we,
Yeah.
Ray? 6-pound
White
line.
line.
Didn't do that to be sportsmen. Those fish are 30 years old. They've seen line go by them. They've seen thousands of lures a week go by them. And for some reason, these just triggered. I always thought there was another factor, too, and that was it might be like a fly you're always slapping at as it goes by.
yeah.
That they just say, that little thing just irritating me
I-
as it goes
I
by
think-
and he
I think
grabs
the
it. I
kokanee-
always wondered if they did it for that
It's a
reason.
kokanee, I think.
But
it
either
just
way, they
irritated
bite
the
'em.
heck out of it. They just slap it just like a fly. It bugs
They
the heck
just
out of 'em.
can't hardly stand
Over
it.
the years, I've come to like the blue colored eyes the best. And there aren't hardly any lures in the world that have blue eyes. Blue and purple are the colors that show up the deepest in the color spectrum in depths of water. But anyway, so a lot of people call it blue-eyed lure because it's about the only lure in fresh water in the world that has blue eyes on it. However, the fish bite on it with no eyes.
Yep.
Also,
And eat the eyes off.
We've
huh?
had them where they eat the eyes right off and they still hit them. So
yeah.
Yeah, they were really hard to get at times when I fished here. Sometimes I had to fish with them without tails on and without eyes and all kinds of things. But it's still the only lure I use. And I know if I come back and try this again, I know which lure I'll be using.
But seeing is believing, and I catch the fish every day when the boats all around me don't catch any. They use the world's best other lures and don't catch them, while I catch them fast on this lure.
People just don't believe that you can go out and there be 25 boats fishing the same hill and there be 5 fish caught that day and I'd have 4 of them. Ray probably catch all 5 of them. But that's true. That's just how it happens.
Anyway, the
folks.
truth of the matter is that this lure has irresistible appeal to all the major game fish species in both fresh and salt water. They just can't resist grabbing it when it goes by them.
And it looks good. It looks good. I'm excited to try some. I'm going to try some down at the reunion lake of mine.
I'm 66 years old. It's the only lure I've used all my life, and I'm credited by the Hall of Fame and all national magazines with having caught more big fish than anybody in the history of the world, being the world's best fisherman. If I've caught all my fish on this lure, I'm sure everybody else could catch some fish on it too. Actually, they wouldn't even ever have to use any other lure. If I was a young person or a teenager, I'd save my money up and get myself 1 or 2.
Can't they get them like
These kind of
online and
lures.
stuff
Get 'em
now? Can't
online,
you buy?
Yeah, he's under a bunch of, it's the Real Minnow Lure. It's still named that, so you can go to realminnowlure.com, or you can go to, we've named it the Legend Lure because it's created a legend. And, there are some retail outlets that have them currently.
Yeah, I saw them at one
Currently-
major one in Salt Lake
Yeah.
City the other day, and so it told me they're selling like hotcakes. So
Sportsman's Warehouse
obviously
is
it's going.
currently selling them, so,
Yeah.
and there's others looking, so.
But besides that,
Why would you buy anything else? I just don't understand it.
the worldwide internet has so many things on the different websites. You can go and see hours of video of the big fish being caught on the lure. You can see a lot of the original national magazines that made the lake famous. This is the lure that made Flaming Gorge world famous. A lot of those articles in full are on the internet. There's all kinds of photographs and comments from other people around the country with fish they've caught on the lure and their comments about it. There's the Hall of Fame visit showing the Fishing Hall of Fame on the internet, and just all kinds of other things on the internet that Mark Christensen has put
Let
on.
me throw one more
internet,
thing.
yeah.
I think this still goes. The thing that got me up here, never forgot in that article, is it said, Ray Johnson will take anybody fishing anytime. If you don't believe it, you just come up here, Flaming Gorge, and ask where he lives. He'll take you fishing, and he'll prove it to you. That's
You're ready
all I
to
can
get up
say.
at 4 a.m. in the morning, right?
Yeah, yeah, he'll leave you if you're not ready before. I can tell you that right now. So get up here and try it. You just won't believe it. But I've been there, done that, and here I am again.
Do you have any world records or?
I think I have one line, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I have one. I didn't get to fish as much, but it's been fun. The one thing I would say is when I do get a fish, I don't get to fish a whole lot, a whole time, like a whole day, unless I'm out with Dad. And that's when we catch the big ones. But I can say I probably have about an 85% rate for whenever I do choose to go do a morning or something. I always usually catch something, which isn't always the case. So the lures work for people who don't have a lot of time to dedicate to fishing as well. So.
My name is Lisa Johnson, and I fish with my dad my whole life, and we've just used his lure, which is our family's lure, and I hold some world records.
How many?
I hold 26 world records, and the biggest one is a lake trout, and I hold another one with kokanee salmon.
I'm Ray Johnson's son, Kirk.
How old are you?
I'm 24 years old.
And what was it like to be Ray Johnson's son?
It was really good to be Ray Johnson's son. At the same time, it was hard also because I was in his reflection. He expected more out of me than he expected out of other people. And it was fun to learn how to fish so well, and it was hard at the same time because he has his own methods and he likes to have those methods be perfect, and I understood that, but at times I didn't. But now that I'm older, I understand what he did to help me learn how to fish was essential. And at times when I was growing up, I didn't understand why I had to get up on Saturdays to real early in the morning to go fish, but I understand now that that was essential to catching the big fish that me and my little sister caught and all the records that we have, and realize what an amazing fisherman my dad is, and that he just wanted us to be just like him and know for ourselves and for our future families how to fish and enjoy fishing the best way possible.
Did you ever go visit the cave with your dad?
Yeah, I've been to his cave many times to look at the rocks that were outside because it's caved in now. I've enjoyed all the stories he's told us about it, all the fish stories he's caught that he told us he caught out of there, and the pictures that he's shown us, and just the magnitude, what it was like to live in the cave at that time and how hard it was.
So some of those great big lake trout that you caught, how long did it take you to reel them in at your young age and working that fish?
When I caught my biggest lake trout, I was about 8 years old, and it took me about 4 hours to reel it in. And many times it about pulled me in, and I was very tired. Every time I'd catch one of those monster fish, I'd have to lay down for a half hour to an hour just to get my energy back to catch another one and be ready to learn more things from my dad and reel more fish in.
And those monster fish, when you're reeling them in, how far do you think they pull the boat around the lake?
miles or feet or?
Probably an average of between 5 and 10 miles over the 4 hours.
So you basically got fish power while you're reeling those in.
Oh yeah, yep. And a lot of the fish, when they're running like that for the 4 hours, you would think they'd tire out really fast, but they don't. And what they do is they come to the surface and then they dive, and then they come to the surface and they dive, and they try and break your line off all the time. You wouldn't think that fish would be smart enough to know to do that, but I tell you from personal experience that they're way smart.
And there's many times you'd work 4 hours to reel that thing in, bring it in, and some of them you just throw back. How did that make you feel when you threw that thing back?
You know, it sounds like it's a big deal to throw it back, but then there's that feeling of you didn't hurt the fish, it's still alive, and gives you the momentum to try and catch it again. And we did catch quite a lot of them again, and they were bigger after that.
But I just watch him catch all these big fish constantly, you know. And I think that's what made all of the guides up there, so they weren't happy with him because he was catching more fish than anybody else could.
Sometimes the local people, I sort of always put it together like the Yankees. Either you love or hate the Yankees, and the reason you hate them is because they win so damn much. Now that's the truth with fishing. If you outfish people, you may not be the most popular guy.
And do you know Ray Johnson?
Yes, I do.
What do you know about him?
He's a fishing fool.
Is he?
He's a legendary fishing fool.
All right, so these fish were caught by Ray Johnson at Flaming Gorge. They were caught earlier this week. We brought them down here just for this filming because we couldn't make it up to Flaming Gorge, so we brought the fish to us. So we met these two gentlemen here, and they're holding them up. These are Mackinac Lake trout. They range anywhere from what you call pups to 1-pounders, well up to over 50 pounds. In fact, Kirk here behind us has caught a 52-pound, 2-ounce lake trout, and he is in the Utah record books if you want to look him up. So if you can imagine, what do you think those two weigh? What do you think yours weighs?
Say 20, 21.
What do you think that one is?
I'd say about 25, 26, somewhere around there.
Would you like to bring one of those in?
Sure. Any day.
Be cool, huh?
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
So
Definitely
how many,
have to get some.
so Kirk's standing right behind me. How many do you think you've caught that size, Kirk?
Probably a couple million.
Lots of them, thousands to millions. So a lot of them are released. We try to show them for the film is why we caught them. We asked Ray if he'd show us a couple big ones. So these are obviously a little bit, but just tell us what you think of that. Cool.
Pretty awesome.
All righty.
Decent sized fish for sure. Nothing you can get out around here.
You ever been to the gorge?
No. Once, never caught anything.
All right. 91 miles is hard to catch a fish if you don't know where they're at, right?
I guess so.
To know it's here. So this is one of the lures that Keith has used, and he puts a weight in the bait cavity, and then like in this one here, he'll put the weight in the bait cavity and cut the bill off of the actual lure, and then he'll jig with it, and it becomes very handy to jig. And we've actually talked about drilling a hole in here so we can jig from the center of it. So a couple modifications to the same lure to use it. So every fisherman will take a lure and change it the way they want to change it. But
And is that the one that he put the fingernail polish on?
this is one he put the fingernail polish. So this nice glittery stuff puts fingernail polish to change the color and it stick to it. So the lure itself is ribbed to make things stick to it, and smelly jelly, whatever, but you can still paint them how you want. So here's another one that's painted.
White one that shows a little bit of glitter on it. What I've decided that the weight isn't quite big enough, so I'm using what I'm a weight that I'm putting up probably above the lure. I'm probably putting that up maybe 24 inches above, with a swivel to stop it from coming down to the lure, and that way the lure can move around, and it has to be balanced so that it swiggles in the water before they'll pick it up. But that's the way I'm trying to design and develop a lure that we can jig with using Ray's lure.
And that's a jigging, not trolling. So this is one of his first lures that he's made, and you can see he's actually just got a cavity in the lure body itself, but he put BBs in there for weight.
Anyway, that would be 1970s.
Probably
About when he was that?
70,
Yeah.
Is that when he started making?
He actually started making the lure when he was 11.
11.
So, and he has, like I say, the balance and the action of the lure, he's always stuck pretty close to. And then as we've done the injection molds and the plastic, we've tried to make it more cosmetically appealing. So like he actually had fins on here, and you can see the ripples, but the...
So tell us how many records again you have, Ray, between all your family here?
Our family has caught 156. 156 official world and state records. In this lake is 91 miles long. There's no reason for any fish to even pay attention to the lure. Most of the time we just use the very littlest 2-inch size. Going through 91 miles of water, and there's no reason for any of those fish paying attention to it, but all of them of every species swim over, open their mouth, and try and swallow it, of all the different species. And it drives the other fishermen crazy, because I always throw a marker out to mark where the fish are, and throwing my marker out is like throwing $1,000 bill on the water. It attracts every boat. So they all come and surround me and my marker. We in my boat catch the fish fast, and most of the time none of the other boats catch any.